Well, hey everybody. Today's Monday, November 25th, 2024. I'm Jan Erickson, and this is As Above, So Below. I hope you all had a good weekend. We have Thanksgiving on Thursday. I will probably go ahead and do a short reading on Thursday morning and post that before I start cooking the turkey. So let's go ahead and I'm going to shuffle just a little bit, and then I'm going to take, because I haven't had a chance to really do that this morning yet. Usually I try to do this before I get started, but I was busy trying to figure out what was wrong with my computer. Something cache related, I guess. I had the same thing happen on the laptop, and they're both Macs, and I don't know, maybe it's a thing with Macs, I don't know. I couldn't get pages to load. It was weird. Anyhow, well, I won't have to do that when the time comes to grab the cards. So let's go ahead and take a rune to get us started on this Monday. I looked outside. It kind of looks like snow clouds out there, but I'm not sure. We'll see. I haven't looked at the weather yet to know. We have Othala, which is the 24th rune of the Elder Futhark. Now, Othala, as the last rune of the Elder Futhark, I kind of view it as if you think of the runes as progressive in terms of the information they have to share. What you have here is Kenaz comprises all of it. The top part, Kenaz turned inward, creates Ingus, and the bottom part with the X would be expanded outward to create Gebo. And so if you're looking at the idea of Othala, then you're looking at sacred space. You're looking at protection and prosperity and balance and loyalty and tradition and security. But you're also looking at the culmination of everything, of how you've internalized with Ingus the higher awareness and the higher self within, and then express that outward to everybody. So if you think about it in that way, it's all of the lessons that you've learned to remind yourself that you're actually a soul having this experience, instead of, waiting to connect with the soul later. You wouldn't exist without the soul infused into the form, essentially, or into the body. And so consequently, what you have is just the culmination of all of that light bringing in and expressing outward from higher awareness or higher self. And so that's to me the essence of, and that might be a little bit of a departure from what other people who read runes might call it, but I tend to look at all of this as soul energy and just the reminders, just like with the soul archetype cards of the major arcana in tarot. It's basically the same thing. It's the stages you go through, the lessons, the major lessons that you learn and embrace, and all of that. Essentially the same as that. So I don't know why it wouldn't, be that with this as well, especially if you consider the runes as soul archetype energies, just the way major arcana is. And so here we have, for the below side of things, we have Pur, which is the complement or opposite of Puella or Puea. These are the youthful energies of the Geomancy rune set. Well, if I can find, oh, there it is. Here we have Pur. So this is scattered little boy energy. And it's essentially a lack of impulse control. I had two boys. I've said this before. I had two boys. They're adults now in their 40s. But when they were young, as all boys are, they get excited about this or that, and they run off and go do things. Well, that reflects a little bit of youthful lack of impulse control. And so it's not something that's a major issue today with impulse control, and certainly something that you can keep under control today, in order that you can continue to create that sacred space of your entire life with Othala. Othala can also indicate the Akashic record. It can also indicate possessions or inheritance. So if you're wanting to protect your legacy, if you will, and all that you've learned so far, you kind of got to keep your impulses under control, see the bigger picture, and not, react in a way that is without understanding the bigger picture. To react before you truly understand what's going on. We'll say that. So I'm just going to shuffle this way a little bit here, because I didn't do that. And let's go ahead and cut the deck, take the lower half, and take 3 cards. Well, we have one from Cups, one from Swords, one from Wands. We don't have any from Earth. We don't have any from the Major Arcana. And we do have one from the Court. I think before we get started with the reading part of that, let's go ahead and do the numerology. So if you're looking at 24 for Othala, then we're looking at 8 here. Nothing for the Queen of Swords, and 7. Oops. Try that again. Plus 8 plus 7 equals 39. I'll do it one more time. 24 plus 8 plus 7. 39. And that 39 reduces to 12. 12 reduces to 3. And so we're going to have a 3 numerology for the overall numerology for today's reading. I'll put that up there so I don't forget. So 3 is about integration. It's also about communication. And right now Mercury's in, well, is it in retrograde yet, or is it tomorrow? We're in the shadow of it if it's tomorrow. Let me look really quick here. And just check and see. Oh, come on. Bring my numbers up. Let's see. Mercury goes retrograde tomorrow. Well, no, today. Today's Monday. Yeah. So Mercury starts its retrograde today. It's been in its shadow for the last week or so. So if you've noticed some things I've noted, like with my computer needing its cache of whatever you do with it, take that out of there. Basically, if you've noticed anything like that, or maybe some miscommunication between you and others, it's just that even though there's 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde, you always have the shadow for about a week before and one after. So you may still feel the effects of it prior to the actual 3 weeks of its retrograde path. But anyway, if you've noticed any of that, then it's probably just due to those energies sort of getting into the mix and messing stuff up. And so, and again, with Mercury in retrograde, you really, really want to be careful with your impulses to make sure that you're not stepping in something that isn't necessary to step in, basically. So with 3, but it's also about integration, not just communication, and it's about optimism and imagination as well. And I mean, imagination might and optimism might relate a little bit too closely to poor here today if that gets out of balance. And so you just want to make sure that everything stays on an even keel. And if you don't have to have a conversation that may be difficult, then maybe you want to wait a little while till Mercury retrograde's over, so that you make sure that nothing is said that isn't right or doesn't need to be said. Sometimes we overreact to things and it causes more problems than it's worth. So again, just kind of be careful there with the integration aspect of things, especially as it relates to Mercury retrograde. So, but let's go ahead and take a look at the cards here. We'll start with, maybe I'm going to start with the Queen, and being honest with yourself. Here we have a queen who is beckoning others to come forth. She's holding her sword straight up in the air. The sword is the air element, and again, Mercury is part of that, and it's retrograde. But here you want to reevaluate, I think. She's sort of a take no prisoners kind of queen, and she expects honesty. And so, But I think when you're looking at the Eight of Cups and the Seven of Wands, I think we're going to interpret this today as honesty with yourself, and being true to your own ideals and being true to your own integrity. Generally speaking, she's someone who doesn't suffer fools, and she's not going to tolerate people that are not being honest. But in retrograde with Mercury, although you may want to think about that as well, and how you express yourself within that. Sometimes people are dishonest, not because they want to be dishonest necessarily, but because maybe they're just being private, and they don't really want to share something, so they'll say something else. And if you're empathic or intuitive at all, you're going to pick up on that and may feel like somebody's not being honest with you. Well, maybe it's just that they're being private. So there's that aspect of this. But in retrograde, if you're reflecting on things, that's one way to look at a retrograde. You might want to think about how honest you are, and whether or not you're offering the integrity that you should to other people. And being honest with the situation that you're in, that could be another thing. If it's a relationship or something like that, maybe the relationship has been off for a while, and you need to re-examine that. Well, again, during this time, you might want to hold off on making any decisions about that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you don't want to look at things either. And one of the things you can look at here is letting go of emotions that no longer serve. And here you have the Eight of Cups. It's interesting because you have this gap right here, and I always want to fill it with this guy. I want to put this guy here. But he's taking the emotions that with him. He's got them all lined up, stacked on top of one another. No, the cups are not spilled over. No, the contents are not spilling out anywhere. But here you have at the end of the day, you could say, because you see the moon above, you got to take stock of everything, of your emotional presence and how well they're serving you. And maybe you leave them here and take with you what you need, no matter, as you start maybe a new path. You see here he's walking uphill. He's got a walking stick. You see some rocks, big rocks really, in his way. So there's challenges ahead. But at the same time, I think you also see them with the big craggy rocks here. But even though that there may be some challenges emotionally ahead, maybe some unknown, you have the inner strength to take a look at how you feel about things, get your thoughts, get your feelings, get all of that, everything about that, put it in a row here, and take with you what you need as you proceed on. What's useful to you, and leave behind the rest. That's one way to see this card. And again, with the Queen, if you're going to embody the essence of the Queen there, then you're going to be wanting to look at things in a really realistic way, and see if things maybe were just felt on impulse, essentially, with Poor here. Because what are you going to have at the end of the day with Othala? How are you going to draw in the light of spirit and express that outward, if you're caught up in the ego's version of emotions, right? And you're reacting emotionally or overreacting to things in a way that's not helpful, right? Either for you or anybody else, or for the situation at hand. And so you might want to think about that. And then you might want to also consider here with the Seven of Wands, what kinds of challenges are you creating for yourself? How much of yourself and the way you see things and the lack of impulse control is causing the challenges in your life? It might be another way of saying that. Here you see a man who's, in fact, didn't we have this? Yeah, we had this on Friday. Or not Friday, but last Thursday. Here we have him standing up on a little hill or a little precipice, and he's holding one staff in defense, and here are some other ones coming in on him. And as I've always said with this, in terms of a martial arts stance, you would never want to stand that way to defend yourself. You want to protect this whole area right here. And he's not doing that. So he's very hurried. He's very rushed. He's got maybe a slipper on here and a sock on there. He's not really, it's just like all of a sudden he has to face something here that maybe he doesn't want to face. And so in a way, the 7 and the 8 here, the 8 of Cups and the 7 of Wands, sort of dovetail together, in that maybe the things you need to reflect on here, and the honesty about, and having some honesty about all of it, has to do with your emotions and how you embrace challenges in your life. And in terms of the 7, you have to let things settle out and really take a look at how you're approaching all of this. And are you creating more havoc for yourself than you need to, as opposed to, and you essentially have a passive influence with the water element and Cups, and an active influence with Wands and the fire element, because this is a fire element. So it just seems to me that water can quench fire, we'll say that. And so your emotions can tell you when maybe your will is a little bit out of control, because you aren't going to feel comfortable. And so maybe there's been some of that going on, and you need to reflect on how honest you're being with yourself today about what's really happening, and how much of yourself is contributing, and the choices you make, the perceptions you have, are actually contributing to the issues that you're having for yourself. And again, with the 8, it's saying maybe you need to get all that in a row and take a look at all of it, and take with you what is really useful and what's going to propel you forward. No matter what the challenges might be, leaving behind emotions that no longer serve is really the way to go. Otherwise, they tend to influence future outcomes in a way that nothing is changing. And with the water element and Cups, change is part of that. How you integrate mind, body, spirit balance with the 3 numerology for the whole reading. How are you integrating all of that together? How do you integrate higher awareness with everything you're thinking and feeling and doing and experiencing? How are you doing that? Are you doing it in a way that higher awareness is governing your perceptions, or are you still allowing ego to do that? And it just seems to me like there's a sense of not swiftness like you would see with the 8 of Wands, where you have a lot coming in on you, but at the same time, what are you defending that you don't need to defend? So much of the time we get into the habit, I think, of in this self-defense mode all the time. You have to explain everything to everybody. Well, no, you don't. Not really. I mean, it depends. Sure, there's times when you owe somebody an explanation, but so much of the time we do it as a matter of course. And I always admire the people that'll just stand there and look at you and not explain a thing. And it's like, how do they do that? And so it's because they don't feel the need to do it, and here, how much of that is happening in the 7 of Wands? How much of it, or how much of what you're defending that you actually need to defend? And if we want to put that before the 8, or can you let go of the emotions that are no longer serving you, that are probably at the heart of this action here, with the fire element, with the expression of will? So much of it comes from feeling emotions first, and then you get all upset and you express yourself with, and you make decisions and you do what you're going to do, right? You act, essentially. And are you acting in a way that's necessary? Do you even need to explain yourself or defend your position? Or are you just so worried about what other people think that you do it anyway? It just seems like, given the fact that he's not even ready to be out there, it's like he's wearing his night clothes. He doesn't even have it looks like he's got tights on, but does he? It just seems to me that he came out of his house in a hurry to defend against something that maybe doesn't need defending. And with the retrograde aspect of Mercury right now, in a sense, you could look at these cards as reversals, in a sense, but they're not. Even though they're not, they don't present that way. But you might think about the other side of things today, and whether or not you're being honest with yourself in how you feel about things and in the way you act on them. Is it really something that needs to happen? Is it being done with complete honesty within? Is there integrity there? Or are you just trying to respond to what situations are without even thinking about how you actually feel about it or how you really want to deal with something? So, and in terms of Othala, how do you create your space if you're always reacting to everything in a way that really doesn't reflect what you want? And if that's the case, then maybe some soul searching needs to happen, as they say. Maybe you need to reconsider things in a more rational way, the way the Queen would want you to consider it. And think in terms of letting things settle out with the 7 and having the inner strength to move forward as you let go of emotions that no longer serve, and the way that you see things. Maybe maybe the challenges that you face in life are created by you and not by external circumstances, but you seem to think that they are. But really, if you sit down and you have an honest conversation with yourself, maybe you realize, well, you know what? I overreacted with poor, and maybe I'm the one getting in the way of myself, and it's not anybody else. It may be the stuff that that's in the subconscious. If you look at this being above and this being below, maybe this is the subconscious realm, and these are the subconscious actions and reactions that he's been dealing with that are really causing him to feel like he needs to defend himself all the time when maybe he doesn't. And so I think that in order to preserve that sacred space from which you then experience the world, where you're drawing in higher awareness and then expressing that outward to others with Othala, you can't get caught up in the ego's, hold to try to pull you into things that really are of your own making. There's a tenet, or if you want to call it a tenet or a basic premise, one of the early basic premises in a book called A Course in Miracles, where it's I create the world that I see. And so if that's true and you believe that, if you're creating the world that you see, then if all you see are challenges and emotional upsets, then where is that really coming from? Is it really coming from outside of you? Or if you're creating the world that you see, are you creating those challenges for yourself? And could you create something else? By sitting back and thinking about it and reflecting on it and being honest with yourself. And to see where you're the one that gets in the way of your emotions, and you're the one that is getting in the way of the actions that you take, and letting things settle so that you can see that, and see if there's a way that you can maybe rethink things and reevaluate your emotions and the way that you see things and the challenges that you face in life. Are you getting in the way, or are you seeing things in a way that are realistic? And it really is external things that you need to deal with. So maybe right now this is just a time for inner reflection, and to try to see, is a lack of impulse control getting in the way of things in how you face challenges, whether external or internal, and how you face emotions that may be challenging you, and to see things more realistic than maybe you've seen them in a while. And again, to preserve either the legacy you leave behind for others or that you extend to others. And all that actually means is, when you're no longer in their company, how do they remember you? Do they remember you as someone who's emotional all the time and is getting upset about things that they don't seem to understand why you're so upset? Are you making mountains out of molehills with the 7 of in terms of the challenges you face, and with the 7 of Wands? And could you see things more realistically, the way the Queen might be suggesting that you do? But it's going to take, again, some honesty within to make that happen. So that's kind of an interesting reading. I didn't intend to include anything about Mercury retrograde in the reading, but given we have poor, I don't know, maybe we have to just to avoid acting before you actually know what's really happening, and are you seeing things in a way that's realistic, and or are you letting a lack of impulse control your emotions and your actions today? So, or have you been doing that for a while? And again, basically invoke the Queen of Swords within, and maybe instead of expecting that honesty from others, maybe start expecting it from yourself, and see if anything in terms of the Seven of Wands and the Eight of Cups, see if any of that changes for you. So, a little different approach to today's reading, but it's always good to reflect. And I like to use Mercury retrograde as a time to do that, instead of, reacting to things all over the place, and looking at things that maybe are an illusion as true when they're not. And it just kind of gives you a few weeks where you can do that, and maybe, gain a little extra wisdom when you're done. So anyway, that's it. That's it for Monday. I know it was an odd reading, but I don't know. It just seems like, you look at Pur and Mercury retrograde, and they really dovetail together really well. It doesn't have to be anything outrageous that happens, but sometimes it can. And, it's just time to breathe and take things a moment at a time. And you should find the solutions that you're looking for. So anyhow, thanks for watching. And again, I will probably go ahead and do a reading on Thursday. I realize not everybody celebrates Thanksgiving in other countries the way we do. That's kind of our holiday here. And I don't know with what's coming in the future here, apparently. I don't know that I'll be celebrating for a few years. I won't quite know what I'll be thankful for. And so anyway, but again, come back again on Thursday for another short edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.